Linda is 67 years old. Her husband Bob is 70. They've been married for 41 years, and last spring, Linda was finally getting ready to file for Social Security on her own work record. She'd worked 22 years on and off as a school librarian, took some time out to raise their two kids, and her benefit at full retirement age came out to about $620 a month. Not great, but she'd made peace with it. She figured something was better than nothing, and she was ready to walk into the local Social Security office and sign the papers. Then a neighbor of hers, a retired accountant, asked her one question over coffee that ended up changing her household income for the rest of her life. The question was, have you checked what half of Bob's benefit looks like? Linda hadn't. She didn't even know that was something she was allowed to ask about. 3 weeks later, she walked out of that Social Security office with a confirmed monthly check of $1,200, almost twice what she was about to settle for. Same Linda, same work history, same Social Security Administration. The only thing that changed was that somebody told her the rule existed. And the most frustrating part of this whole story is that there are millions of couples in this country right now who are leaving the same kind of money on the table for the exact same reason. Nobody told them. The Social Security Administration is not going to call you. They are not going to send you a letter that says, by the way you're about to file is going to cost you $14,000 a year for the rest of your retirement. They will quietly process whichever application you hand them and move on to the next person. So in the next 20 or so minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly how the spousal Social Security rules work in 2026, the trick most couples miss, the 2 birthday rules that decide which strategies are still open to you, and the mistakes I've seen people make that cost them 5 and 6 figures over the course of their retirement. Quick note before we get going, nothing in this video is financial or legal advice, and Social Security rules can shift based on your specific situation. If you're making a real decision about when to file, please talk to a qualified financial planner or call the Social Security Administration directly to confirm what applies to your case. All right, let's start with what a spousal benefit actually is, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page before we get into the strategies. A Social Security spousal benefit is a payment that one spouse can receive based on the other spouse's work record. The maximum is 50% of what the working spouse would receive at their full retirement age. Notice I said full retirement age, not the age they actually claimed at. This is the single most misunderstood piece of the entire rule, so I want to slow down and say it again. The spousal benefit is calculated on the working spouse's primary insurance amount, which is what they would have received if they filed exactly at full retirement age, regardless of when they actually filed. So if Bob's full retirement age benefit was $2,400 a month, the maximum spousal benefit available to Linda is $1,200, half of that $2,400 period. It does not matter whether Bob claimed at 62, at 67, or waited until 70. The math is locked to Bob's full retirement age number. Now to qualify for spousal benefits, 3 things have to be true. You have to be at least 62 years old. You have to have been married for at least 1 year. And your spouse, the one with the work record you're claiming on, has to actually be receiving their benefits. This last one trips people up all the time. If Bob is delaying his Social Security until 70, Linda cannot start collecting a spousal benefit until Bob actually turns his benefit on. The old workaround for this was a strategy called file and suspend, where Bob could file but immediately suspend his payments, which would unlock Linda's spousal benefit while Bob's own benefit kept growing. That strategy was killed by the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015. It does not exist anymore for anybody. So today, the working spouse actually has to be drawing their check before the non-working spouse can collect on it. Now there's a 4th requirement that doesn't get mentioned enough, which is that the spousal benefit only kicks in if it's higher than your own retirement benefit. You don't get to collect both at the same time. The Social Security Administration pays you the higher of the 2. If your own benefit is $1,000 and half of your spouse's benefit is $1,200, they pay you $1,200. If your own benefit is $1,500 and half of your spouse's is $1,200, they pay you $1,500. You always get the bigger number, but only the bigger number, never the sum. Okay, now here is where things get expensive, and this is the part that catches people the most, so pay close attention. The age you claim your spousal benefit at matters enormously, and the rules for claiming early are actually harsher for spousal benefits than they are for your own retirement benefit. When you claim your own retirement benefit early, before full retirement age, you get hit with a reduction. The math is roughly 0.5% per month for the first 36 months you claim early, and then a smaller reduction for each additional month. When you claim spousal benefits early, the reduction is steeper. It's 25/36 for those first 36 months, which works out to about 8.3% per year you claim early. So if your full retirement age is 67 and you claim a spousal benefit at 62, you lose about 30% of the value. A $1,200 spousal benefit at full retirement age becomes about $840 at 62. That is a permanent reduction. It doesn't go up when you turn 67. It doesn't go up when you turn 70. It's locked in at that reduced amount for the rest of your life. And here's the second piece of this that almost nobody understands. Spousal benefits do not grow past your full retirement age. With your own retirement benefit, every year you delay past full retirement age, your check grows by 8% per year until you hit age 70. That's called the delayed retirement credit. It's the single most generous deal Social Security gives you, but it does not apply to spousal benefits. If you wait past your full retirement age to claim a spousal benefit, you're not getting anything extra. You're just leaving money on the table that you could have been collecting. So the basic rule for spousal benefits is simple. Don't claim them early if you can avoid it, because the reduction is steep and permanent. And don't claim them late, because there's no benefit to waiting. The sweet spot for most people is exactly at your full retirement age. Not before, not after. Right at it. Now let me give you a real example of how this plays out, because the numbers tell the story better than I can. Let's say we have two couples, both with similar income situations, but they handle their filing very differently. Couple 1, we'll call them the Harrisons. Frank Harrison worked for 40 years as a project manager, and his full retirement age benefit is $2,800 a month. His wife Carol mostly stayed home raising their 3 kids, then worked part-time at a doctor's office for about 12 years. Carol's own full retirement age benefit is $480 a month. Now, half of Frank's full retirement age benefit is $1,400. So Carol's maximum spousal benefit is $1,400, and that's a lot more than her own $480, which means she should file as a spouse, not on her own record. Now, here's where the Harrisons did this right. Frank decided to delay claiming until age 70 to maximize his own benefit, which will eventually grow to about $3,470 a month. Carol, who's exactly the same age as Frank, waited until her full retirement age of 67 to file as a spouse, and the moment Frank turned his benefit on at 70, Carol's spousal benefit kicked in at the full $1,400 a month. Now compare them to couple 2, the Mitchells. Same income story. Bill Mitchell, project manager, $2,800 a month at full retirement age. His wife Susan stayed at home for years, then part-time. Susan's own benefit at full retirement age would be $480, but Susan got nervous as she approached 62. She wanted to start drawing something, so she filed for her own benefit at 62. That locked her in at about $336 a month for life. Then a couple of years later, when Bill filed, the Social Security Administration looked at her file and topped her up to her spousal amount. But because she had already filed early, that spousal portion was also reduced. Her total ended up at around $980 a month instead of $1,400. That's $420 less per month, every month, forever. Over 20 years of retirement, that's $100,000 Susan left on the table because she filed too early. Same couple, same income, same Social Security rules, completely different outcome based on one decision. And here's what makes this so painful. Susan probably didn't even know she had a choice. Most lower-earning spouses don't realize that the spousal benefit is even available to them, so they file on their own record at 62 because they're scared the money will run out, or they think they're supposed to file as soon as they can. Now let's talk about the rule that the headline of this video pointed to, which is the restricted application. This is the technical name for what used to be the most powerful strategy in spousal Social Security planning, and it still works for a specific group of people today. Here's how it works. If you were born on or before January 1st, 1954, and you've reached your full retirement age, you can file what's called a restricted application. This means you can file for just the spousal benefit on your spouse's record while letting your own benefit keep growing with delayed retirement credits until you reach age 70. Then at 70, you switch over to your own, much larger benefit. The math on this is incredible when it works. You collect the spousal benefit for 3 or 4 years, which can easily add up to $40,000 or $50,000 in total, and then you flip to your own benefit at 70, which is now 24% larger than it would have been at full retirement age because of those delayed credits. You get the money in your pocket now and the bigger check later. It's the closest thing to a free lunch that Social Security ever offered. Unfortunately, the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 closed this loophole for everyone born after January 1, 1954. The legal way they did it was through something called deemed filing, which essentially says that when you apply for one benefit, you're automatically considered to have applied for the other one. So you can't restrict your application to just one benefit anymore. Social Security looks at both and pays you the higher of the two. Now, you might be thinking, well, I was born after 1954, so this doesn't apply to me. And mostly that's true, but there's a small group of people for whom the restricted application is still very much in play. In 2026, anyone born on or before January 1st, 1954 is at least 72 years old, sometimes older. Most people in this group have already either filed for everything or switched to their own benefit at 70, but not all of them. There are still people in their early to mid-70s who, for various reasons, never filed or filed only for spousal benefits and haven't yet switched, or got divorced or widowed and have new options on the table they didn't have before. If you're in that group, or if you have a parent in that group, this is worth a phone call to a Social Security office or a qualified planner, because if the door is still open for you, walking through it could mean thousands of dollars a year for the rest of your retirement. Now, I want to spend the next few minutes on what I think is actually the most important part of this whole video, which is the claim and switch strategies that still work in 2026 for the rest of us. Because even though the classic restricted application is gone for most people, there are still ways to legally claim one benefit, let another one grow, and switch later to maximize your total household income. The first one, and this is the big one, is the survivor benefit switch. The deemed filing rule that I just told you about, the one that kills the spousal restricted application, does not apply to survivor benefits. I'll repeat that because it matters. Deemed filing does not apply to survivor benefits. What that means in practice is this. If your spouse has passed away, you have a much wider set of choices than someone whose spouse is still living. You can file for the survivor benefit first while letting your own retirement benefit grow until 70. Or you can file for your own benefit first and switch to the survivor benefit later. You're allowed to do that, so let's say a woman named Margaret loses her husband Tom at age 64. Tom had a full retirement age benefit of $2,800. Margaret has her own full retirement age benefit of $1,600. If Margaret files for her survivor benefit at her full retirement age of 67, she'd receive about $2,800 a month from Tom's record. But if she instead files for her own retirement benefit at 67, which is $1,600, and then switches to the survivor benefit at 70, she gets the smaller amount for 3 years, and then the larger amount for the rest of her life. But the way that usually maximizes things is actually the reverse. Take the survivor benefit first, let your own retirement benefit grow with delayed credits to age 70, then switch to your own. Because here's the kicker. Survivor benefits do not grow past full retirement age, so there's no point waiting on them. But your own retirement benefit grows 8% a year until 70. So, a lot of widows in this situation collect the survivor benefit from full retirement age to 70 while their own benefit fattens up, then they switch to their own larger benefit at 70. The math depends on whose benefit was higher, the survivor amount, or the eventual delayed retirement credit number, but the point is, you actually have options. The deemed filing trap doesn't close on you. The second claim and switch strategy that still works is for divorced spouses. And this one is wildly underused. If you were married for at least 10 years, you have been divorced for at least 2 years, you are currently unmarried, and you are at least 62 years old, you can claim a spousal benefit on your ex-spouse's work record. And here's the part that's different from regular married spousal benefits. Your ex does not need to have filed yet. They just need to be eligible. So if your ex is your same age, still working, hasn't filed yet, but is eligible for Social Security, you can claim on their record anyway, as long as the divorce is at least 2 years old. You don't need their permission, you don't need to tell them, they will never know unless they go looking, and your claim does not reduce their benefit by even 1 penny. It also doesn't affect their current spouse's benefit if they've remarried. I have seen people miss this rule for years. Women in particular, who were married for 12, 15, 20 years to a higher earner, then divorced, then convinced themselves they had no claim on his earnings record because they were no longer married. Wrong. You absolutely do, as long as you check those 4 boxes. The 10-year mark on the marriage is the one to watch carefully. If you were married 9 years and 11 months, you get nothing. If you were married 10 years and 1 month, you qualify. So if you're approaching a divorce and you've been married 8 or 9 years, this is a very real conversation to have with your attorney about timing. And one more piece of this. If your ex passes away, you become eligible for a divorced survivor benefit, which can be up to 100% of what your ex was entitled to. The 10-year rule still applies, but the remarried rule loosens. You can remarry after age 60 and still keep your divorced survivor benefits. There are people out there collecting on the record of an ex they haven't spoken to in 30 years, and the rules are absolutely on their side. The third strategy isn't really a switch, but it's a sequencing decision that has the same effect, and it applies to married couples where one spouse earned a lot more than the other. Conventional wisdom says the higher earner should always delay until 70 to maximize the household's lifetime Social Security income, and that's often correct. But when there's a big gap between what the lower earning spouse can get on their own record versus what they can get as a spouse, sometimes it actually makes sense for the higher earner to claim earlier. Here's why. Remember, the lower earning spouse cannot claim a spousal benefit until the higher earner has filed. So if Bob is going to wait until 70 and Carol's spousal benefit would be $1,400 a month, Carol is missing out on $1,400 a month for every month Bob delays past her full retirement age. Over 3 years, that's about $50,000 in spousal benefits the household never collects. Bob's delayed retirement credits between 67 and 70 due increase his own benefit by about 24%. But you have to weigh that increase against Carol's $50,000 in lost spousal benefits. In some cases, especially when the lower earner has a long expected lifespan and the spousal benefit is substantial, it's worth Bob filing earlier so Carol can start collecting sooner. This is a calculation a good planner can run for you in about 15 minutes with the right software. But the key is that higher earner always delays is not a one-size-fits-all rule. The spousal benefit changes the math. Now, I want to spend a few minutes on the mistakes that I've seen people make, the ones that end up costing households the most money. The first one is the lower earning spouse claiming too early at 62 out of fear or impatience. Susan from earlier in the video is the classic case. If you're going to be a spousal beneficiary, claiming at 62 instead of waiting until your full retirement age can cost you 30% of your monthly check for the rest of your retirement. That is a permanent loss. Across a 20-year retirement, that's typically somewhere between $60,000 and $120,000 of household income that just evaporates because of one decision made at 62. The second mistake is the higher earner not realizing that when they claim early, they're not just reducing their own benefit, they're permanently reducing the survivor benefit their spouse will receive after they're gone. The survivor benefit is based on what the deceased spouse was actually receiving, not on their full retirement age amount. So if Bob claims at 62 and gets a 30% reduced check when Bob eventually passes, Carol's survivor benefit is based on Bob's reduced check, not on the full amount Bob would have gotten if he'd waited. This is the silent retirement killer. People focus on the joint benefit while both spouses are alive and forget that one spouse will eventually outlive the other, often by many years, and they'll be living on the survivor benefit. If the higher earner claimed early, the survivor benefit is permanently smaller. The third mistake, and this one is more administrative but really common, is not checking that the Social Security Administration applied the spousal calculation correctly. There are people who have been receiving their own retirement benefit for years and never realized that the spousal top-up should have been calculated for them once their spouse filed. The system should catch this automatically, but it doesn't always. So if you're married and your spouse has filed, and you suspect your benefit might be smaller than half of theirs at full retirement age, it's worth a phone call to the SSA to confirm the spousal calculation was run. The fourth mistake is missing the 2-year divorce rule when claiming on an ex-spouse's record. If your ex hasn't filed yet, you have to wait 2 years from the date of the divorce before you can claim on their record. If they have already filed, you don't have to wait. So if you're recently divorced and your ex is still working, you need to mark that 2-year anniversary on your calendar. And the fifth mistake is not having both spouses log into My Social Security at ssa.gov and pull their benefit estimates well before retirement. Most couples are filing blind. They don't know what the numbers actually are. They don't know what half of their spouse's benefit looks like. They don't know what waiting until 70 would do to the household. The SSA gives you a free tool that runs the math, and almost nobody uses it before they have to. So let me close with what I'd actually do this week if I were sitting where you might be sitting right now. First, both you and your spouse should create My Social Security accounts at ssa.gov if you haven't already. It takes about 15 minutes. Pull both of your benefit statements and write down 3 numbers for each of you. Your benefit at 62, your benefit at full retirement age, and your benefit at 70. Then take half of each spouse's full retirement age number, that's the maximum spousal benefit available to the other. Now you have 6 numbers on a piece of paper, and you can see exactly which benefit each of you should be claiming on. Second, if there's a 10-plus year marriage in your past that ended in divorce and you're currently unmarried, do not assume you have no claim. Pull your old marriage certificate and divorce decree out and call the SSA to ask whether you might be entitled to a divorced spousal or divorced survivor benefit. The number is 1-800-772. 1213. Third, if you've already filed and you're not sure you've got the spousal top-up calculated correctly, call the SSA and ask them to verify. And fourth, if your situation is anywhere close to the line, especially if you're in a marriage with a large income gap, or you're divorced, or your spouse has passed, please talk to a fee-only certified financial planner who specializes in retirement income. A one-time consultation will run you somewhere between $300 and $1,000 in most parts of the country. And the difference in lifetime Social Security income from getting this right versus getting it wrong is often 6 figures. That is the highest ROI conversation you will have in your entire retirement. The whole spousal benefit system is one of those parts of Social Security that was clearly written by someone who assumed you'd have a financial planner walking you through it. Most people don't. The rules are buried in the SSA handbook in language that almost requires a translator. So whatever you take away from this video, take away this. The Social Security Administration is not going to call you and tell you you're leaving money on the table. They will pay you whatever you ask them to pay you, and they will move on. The dollars you don't claim, you don't get back. So go check the numbers, pull the estimates, have the conversation with your spouse, and if you found this helpful, the next video I'd point you to is the one on Social Security survivor benefits, because that's where the actual claim and switch strategy still lives. For everyone, not just the pre-1954 birthday group. Don't click on it just yet. Hit subscribe first so you don't miss the next one, especially as the rules keep shifting in 2026 and beyond. I'll see you in the next one.